That'll give you the ability to see all of our speakers today side by side versus toggling back and forth based on who's speaking. We find that that's the best viewing experience. It's not too late to invite a colleague or a friend to join today. You can simply share the URL that you have right now with them. But if for some reason they can't join us live, this live cast will also be available on YouTube, and we will be sharing information for on demand after the fact. You can interact with today's speakers via the Q&A widget that you have there. It's awesome. You can send them questions throughout the chats, and they can address those questions during the 10-minute Q&A portion of the live cast towards the end of the chat. Anything that we don't get to today, we'll follow back up with you. And last but certainly not least, before we kick things off, we are so grateful to Cisco WebEx for being our official technology partner today and powering today's broadcast. So we're going to play a quick video from our friends at Cisco, and our buddy Vishal is going to tee that up right now. Awesome. Thanks, Vishal. All right, so let's get started. So excited to bring on TK from one of our partners, Arm Treasure, and they are a real expert in this space. TK has spoken several times on our stage, so we're really excited that he's back here today. You're actually going to get twice the TK because he's going to be joining us not only for this webinar, but he'll be back later in the program for a BI live cast with Sam's Club. So I know he's jumping on right now, so we'll just give him. Oh, there he is.
Hi, Lauren.
Hey, welcome.
How are you?
It's so good to have you back.
Thank you. Nice to be back here again.
Good, yeah. Well, you look like you're all set up and ready to go. So I'll turn the mic over to you and jump back in towards the end. And then we're excited to have you back on later in the program.
Awesome. Thank you.
Enjoy.
My topic for today is how to reimagine digital transformation driven by customer data. The reality today, especially since the lockdown, is that retailers are reimagining themselves every single day. Long-term planning horizons at large retailers used to be 4 years, and now it is 4 weeks. So customers and customer data is mission critical for success, especially now. A slide on what we do and on a day-to-day basis. I work for a company called Arm Treasure Data. We are a market leader in this category called customer data platforms that we offer as a service. And this service is available to over 450 enterprise customers globally. And we have a global footprint with data centers in the Americas, Germany, Japan, and Korea. So we've heard a lot about digital transformation over the last several months and also over the last several years. The question in everyone's mind is, has the pandemic really changed how retailers approach digital transformation? And what is the evidence around this? And secondly, what should retailers do specifically in terms of how they view digital transformation and how they can benefit from it? So I want to start by taking us back about 25 years ago when Amazon started, because a lot of this was essentially started then. And the term digital transformation entered our vocabulary basically around the same time, 25 years ago. There's a gentleman called Nicholas Negroponte who was head of MIT's Media Lab, and he coined this term in a book called Being Digital. And he promoted the view of transforming more of the business processes and the products from atoms to bits. It's a simple definition. It's a simple concept. It's very challenging to do. It's very challenging to execute. And here we are 25 years later. So fast forward to April 2020. And Mary Meeker, who is a famous investment banker at Morgan Stanley and formerly a venture capitalist at Kleiner Perkins, she writes these annual books or annual trends around the internet and digitization. And she published a paper in April, which talks about a lot of the secular trends that she was seeing in the first 2.5 months of the lockdown. The trend that really jumped out to me from the report was the fact that digital transformation is accelerating very, very significantly. In the last 25 years, since Amazon was born, retailers have somewhat reluctantly, to a large extent, have made digital transformation investments to hedge against what's known as the Amazon effect. Some of the retailers who've made more of these digital transformation investments as an imperative, such as Walmart, Home Depot, Target, Lululemon, etc., have done significantly better in the last few months as compared to their peers. So what is really digital transformation? And do different retailers define digital transformation differently? It has been somewhat challenging for CEOs to get alignment over the last couple of decades on what exactly should be the focus of digital transformation. Is it the supply chain? Is it employee productivity? Is it the omni-channel customer experience? I feel that this lack of conviction was because C-level executives were competing to keep the lights on. Essentially, retailers do not close for business. They deal with customers 24/7 in e-commerce and often in stores. So there is a real-time execution need and the imperative to stay in business that is super critical. And secondly, at the same time, you have something very orthogonal that is coming from Amazon, which they have to keep pace with, which was called the Amazon effect. And today they're forced to invest in digital transformation because of the pandemic. I feel today, as always, the most important asset retailers have are their customer data that they have to execute against. Customer data and personalization are not going away. They're here always. They've been here always, and they're here to stay. Customer-facing initiatives are more impactful and longer lasting to invest up in. Additionally, executives now have conviction to invest up in e-commerce, use the store for curbside delivery, pay associates more because they really are awesome, contactless shopping to keep us all safe, et cetera, et cetera. The customer has always been central. Sam Walton, who founded Walmart, famously said, there is only one boss, the customer. And she or he can fire everybody in the company from the chairman on down, simply by spending their money somewhere else. A retailer's customer data is often, if not always, fragmented and disconnected. Their omni-channel processes, which is essentially how a customer like me or you engage with the brand, either in store or digitally, are sufficiently broken that we notice it. The processes often do not result in great customer journeys or experience for all of us. There's a very urgent need to unify that customer data, as it is challenging now to sustain their businesses going forward without it. So for retailers specifically, I propose a three-step playbook to jumpstart digital transformation with customer data platforms. Because again, customer-facing initiatives are lead to substantially more results and are an important asset to build on longer term. So the first step is unify all that fragmented, disconnected customer data that you have in dozens of sources into something called a customer data platform. Secondly, unify governance and security to ensure privacy, compliance, and customer trust. And lastly, which is a step up in terms of challenge, is unify all the retailers' operations to bring an omni-channel customer experience in all touchpoints, whether it be digital, mobile app, in-store, in-person, curbside, et cetera, and empower associates with fresh customer data. So retailers typically have a lot of customer data. They save all data because they typically do not know when it is valuable. So a lot of data is available in retailer systems, and a lot of it is customer data. But typically, these systems do not always talk to each other. Additionally, the sources of customer data now are increasing with digital and often includes things like third-party data that have augmented information on customer shopping habits, brand preferences, real-time brand preferences, social media, et cetera, et cetera. Bringing all this available data, ensuring its quality, making it usable, are complex, time-consuming, and costly things to invest in. This makes it extremely challenging for retailers to get the ideal of a unified customer profile on me or anyone else that they want to target. These unified profiles are valuable because of the richness that goes well beyond knowing a customer's contact information and past purchases. A rich profile also includes information like the level of engagement, satisfaction, interest broadly, online, in-store, contextual, behavioral, et cetera, et cetera. The details require capturing data from multiple sources that the retailer already has customer data in, and interacting with individual or segments of customers at the right point in the journey of the customer. So the second element in the digital transformation that I talked about was privacy and the need to unify governance and security of customer data around it. So privacy and the regulation of it are the new imperative and are here to stay. So following Europe's lead with GDPR, several countries, including the United States, are at some stage of regulating consumer data privacy more vigilantly. The technology industry is also following this secular customer need. Apple continuously adds more privacy controls to empower the consumer to use their products. Google has already announced that they will sunset cookies in Chrome by 2022. The consequence of all this is retailers cannot depend on third-party data anymore, and they need to have what's called first-party data, which is direct permission-based data from me to that I allow retailers to use for loyalty or some other benefits that I can in turn benefit from over time. So with privacy becoming very critical and important to the consumer, trust needs to be ensured. And to ensure trust, they need to have all that data in one place to have proper security and governance around it. So privacy is also a great opportunity for people to transform business models and advertising. New York Times, which is not a retailer but a publisher, famously increased revenues and continues to increase revenues significantly after GDPR, the privacy regulation, went into place in Europe. They changed their mechanism of selling advertising and started selling advertising directly instead of going through third-party exchanges. So the April 2020, there's a great article by McKinsey in April 2020 on reimagining stores. And this talks a lot about unifying all the retailers' operations around that fresh customer data that is served from a customer data platform. The key idea here is one, to create these omni-channel experiences and business models and data-enabled services so that the customer can be served in any channel. I, as a customer, don't care about omni-channel. I just want to have the same experience, whether it's in the mobile app, whether it's in-store, whether it's on the web, whether it's voice, whatever it is. So one key idea here is to better understand a store's true economic value is to grow beyond the four-wall concept and bring the store to the customer. An example, of course, is curbside delivery or delivery to home. But in addition, they call on retailers to modify the store profit and loss to include its e-commerce franchise, which means ensure that the sales in the region, say within 10 miles of a store, is attributed to the store so that they can have and build a personal relationship with the community around the store. The other idea, which builds on this notion of creating a store as a regional franchise for omni-channel revenue, is to ensure that associates are trained and motivated to provide in-store personalization, and also being able to execute more than just one task, that is operational use cases like fulfillment, delivery, et cetera, and each of these tasks be enriched with customer data so that they're empowered. If they're delivering to me through curbside, it would be helpful to know, for them to know a little bit about me before they actually come and deliver to me. They may be able to engage with me, or they may be just able to greet me. So those simple experiences change the brand experience for the customer right now. In the last couple of years or so, enterprises have invested more than $1 billion in this category called customer data platforms. Our friends at Boston Consulting Group have written extensively on it. CDPs, as they're called, are used to unify data from a plethora of sources, fragmented in the case of a retailer, disconnected in the case of other companies, perhaps, and enrich all that data with social media data or third-party data from companies like Nielsen, et cetera, so that there's deeper meaning and understanding of the customer. And using that data, they can build evergreen profiles of customers to promote the next best product in any channel, email or mobile app or in-store, and more importantly, at the right moment where a customer is going from exploration to experience, so that there can be a rapid transition to a purchase. So this results in often in either a better overall experience with the brand, and additionally, an increase in loyalty and therefore customer lifetime value. Customer data platforms also, as this says, spread the workload into the hands of business teams in marketing, e-commerce, and in the store, instead of just the technology teams having all the data and not being, able to put it to use very quickly. Data and tools available in customer data platforms can help marketeers and store associates to be very agile in engaging with customers or custom audiences that they create, segments that they are interested in promoting to, and improve the effectiveness of their marketing efforts. Retailers especially have a need to democratize the customer data across different silos to deliver a true omni-channel experience for customers. So they really have high quality teams everywhere in merchandising, in marketing, in store, as we've seen through the last 3 or 4 months. But they can empower that customer-facing staff and associates even more by serving them customer data from a CDP type product. So a customer's interaction with a retailer now can trigger an immediate and lingering effect on their sense of trust and loyalty. Good customer data platform implementations can enable this and help the people interacting with the customer to have real-time insights from a plethora of things, whether it be artificial intelligence enabled or data from devices or location data. And they can then design and execute very holistic offline and online customer journeys. Keeping a real-time pulse on the interaction between the retailer and the customer is very critical right now to drive this digital transformation that is accelerating very quickly. So the last slide is a lot of people have asked us who have done this very well as of now. And this is a list of retailers. Some of them are our customers, some are not yet our customers. But this is a set of retailers that have done really well in digital transformation driven by customer data platforms, especially in the last year or two. Some of these brands are very well known, some are maybe not as well known. But if you interact with these brands, often you find that the experience is driven by data and often a more meaningful experience from an omni-channel customer experience perspective. So that's all I had for you today. I can check if there are any questions.
Hey, TK.
Hi, Lauren.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. And you?
Good. So I know that we're going to have you back here in a little bit, but I wanted to ask you a few questions before we move on to our next session. So is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And this is probably a little bit broader than what we just discussed in your presentation, but generally kind of along the lines of like trends and predictions, what over the past couple of months, I know you've been working a lot with your clients, and you've probably seen a lot of different things. So what do you feel like, based on everything that's happened in the past 6 months, what do you feel are going to be like in terms of data? What do you think they're going to be like the top 3 trends that we see over the next like 6 to 9 months?
So this is a very this is a money question, right? In general, I mean, everybody recognizes that data is more important, and using data to execute different things are super critical. Whether it's supply chain planning, having items on the shelves at the right time, bringing the customers in. Uh, so, from a perspective of what might be the future and the interaction from a data perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so in the physical channel, I would suggest uh, there is evidence of this. There are stores by Amazon called Amazon Go,
Okay.
which is essentially data driven, significantly data driven. They have over 300 cameras in generating data on movement and things like that, automated checkouts. They make me scan my app to get into the store. So the line has gone outside as opposed to on the till.
Yeah.
So they know who I am. At the moment I enter the store, they know who I am. And so that experience works for a lot of interaction, but arguably the the data that is collected and the benefits that are coming out of it are very significant for the customer, and I think that's a good template to think of for all retailers. And obviously it doesn't work for everyone as is. It has to be made to work for each retailer in different ways. Checkout is an issue for some people. So automated checkout with me doing nothing is great. Promoting items while I'm in the store, contextually, things that because I mean, most shoppers go into a store or into an e-commerce session with intent to buy something, and items that may be in the back of my mind are not always top of mind, and it'll help, send reminders and things like that. The other example I will share with you is our customer, actually, which is Wish.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
is it's the logo on the LA Lakers, and they're actually the most used e-commerce app globally. 500 million people use it. So in that, what they do is, if you look at Amazon or Walmart.com or any other digital experience for a customer, the journey is essentially driven by intent, meaning I know what I'm going to buy. I search, compare, look at pricing, read reviews, and end up purchasing an item. In the Wish experience, this is sort of flip the other way. They have good customer data on me, the shopper, and they push this like carousel of items based on what might be of interest to me.
Oh, wow.
So 9 out of 10 purchases on Wish.com are generated from data and not by intent. It's not. So there's that personalization that happens on a one-to-one basis, that is very unique. So those are the two, vectors, I would say, Amazon Go on one end and Wish.com on the other end. And people can pick and choose what works for them within those two vectors.
Awesome. I before we go, I am getting actually a question from the audience. I wanted to ask you that really quickly.
Okay.
So yeah, so Phyllis Joseph from our audience has asked a question, and she has asked, do you see any critical mass of manufacturers pivoting to D2C, and what are the pros and cons of such a move?
Um, so um, so the answer is yes. So the evidence is, uh, there's an e-commerce platform called Shopify that has done tremendously well in the last several months, and that's because manufacturers are moving to use their platform to offer, like Pepsi started snacks.com in a month or 2 weeks. And Shopify is an engine that enables them to do the e-commerce part. So manufacturers there are thousands of people apparently moving on to those platforms on a quarterly basis. So that is happening. The second aspect to this is as manufacturers move into this digital journey and engaging customers like you and I on a one-to-one basis, they do need to manage extremely high volumes and velocity of customer data. So there is a need for a customer data platform for them to take advantage of it. The consequence, the latter question was around what could happen, because the trend is happening. Some people have done it really well in Nike. They've done it really well they used to be a manufacturer. Now they go direct. Some people are still learning, but so I don't know the long-term trends and who might be the winners. But arguably the people who have strong brands and do not need to invest significantly in spreading, making their brand known, are in pole position. The other are these great brands that start with a blog or something and target around a trend, whether it be sustainability, Gen Z interests, et cetera, and been in that cycle. So I think that's where I see. I don't know if that's a definite answer, but the trend is happening. Manufacturers are moving. Who are the winners? It's probably too early right now.
That's for another day.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Well, this timing is perfect. Thank you for joining us for the first half of your participation today, and then we'll have you back here in a little bit for another chat with Yvette.
Thank you, Lauren. My pleasure. Take care.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Bye. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in for TK's webinar, and I hope you guys learned something today. And again, like I said, he'll be back. So now we're going to be joined by Justin Parnell. He's the Senior Brand Director of Oreo at Mondelez. And moderating the session today is going to be Patrick Gutt. He's the VP and Head of Advertising Agency Sales at NC Solutions. So welcome to Justin and to Patrick. Hey, guys.
Thank you, Lauren.
Hey.
Hey, thanks so much. Sorry, trying to get off.
Yeah, you gotta have a nice clean screen there. So yeah, we'll let you guys get started, and I'll jump back in towards the end.
Cool. Thanks so much. Hey, Justin, how are you doing?
Good, Patrick. How are you?
Doing well. As we kind of get into this and think back, I think we're going to focus a little bit on the past quarter and kind of what's happening further on. But the first word that kind of comes to mind when I think about the past quarter is disruption, right? From the manufacturing to the consumers to what they're buying, the whole ecosystem has really been disrupted. And as we walk through the next 30 minutes or so, I think it'll be very helpful to get for attendees to get a line of sight into Oreo's perspective on this and how they've navigated through this time, being such a flagship brand in the market. So maybe we start off pretty easy and just kind of think through just impact. The way that NCS looks at the data in purchasing behaviors, we look at 3 chunks, right? We have a home confined purchasing phase right now where we see overall CPG purchasing up 17% year over year. People are buying a lot more. Previous to that, we had extreme buying. That's the epitome of the empty toilet paper shelf, right, that you see in the stores, and then folks stocking up beforehand. What was really interesting as we layered on top was a little bit of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So going into Psych 101 back in college. And what we noticed is that in the extreme buying phase, there was a tremendous uptick in that in the safety products. So toilet paper, hand sanitizer, cleaner. Once that was resolved, we noticed in this now home confined phase where folks are at, there's been a shift to go up the pyramid and continue climbing. And we've seen a tremendous impact or spike in sales and consistent replenishment of cookies, snacks, comfort foods, etc. Right? And we think that that's tied towards a sense of emotional comfort folks are looking for during an uncertain time. So from an Oreo perspective, can kind of talk through a little bit how the short-term impact as you see it now has impacted your overall consumer base and kind of shed some light on the data that we've been seeing on our end?
Yeah, I mean, it's very consistent with everything that you just said. It is interesting to go back to Psych 101 and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's exactly what we're seeing in the category, cookies, crackers, snacking more broadly, is people are turning to snacks as a way of comfort, right? As a means of comfort. Snacks, particularly brands that you grew up with, like Oreo, are very nostalgic. Like they do bring back memories of childhood, and there is an element of safety, and security in those memories. And so it's really interesting to see what's kind of unfolded, because it's exactly what you described, right? In the sort of mid-March timeframe, right? That's when we saw a massive spike, and that was more, panic buying. Just load up your pantry. People were very anxious and uncertain around, what all this meant. Being in a pandemic, being in a lockdown, and certain categories, they're not expandable. Like a toilet paper. I'm sure it was a spike, and then eventually, it kind of normalizes. But in the case of snacks, we saw that huge spike, but we've continued to see sustained, high double-digit levels of growth on our brands and in our categories for exactly the reasons we were talking about around, that comfort. And they're home, right? We're doing everything from home. They were schooling at home and working from home, so we're snacking more, and so we're continuing to see that. I mean, in terms of like none of us have a crystal ball into the future, but we do believe there's something kind of fundamental here shifting for us, right? Like that returning to home, the comfort of home. I mean, a lot of conjecture around what does the future of the workplace look like. I think a lot of people are, it seems a lot of companies are saying, there's going to be much greater flexibility. People might be working from home much, into the future, even post-pandemic. So I think that could have some interesting impacts on our category. So for us, it's been really, I mean, disruption is the perfect word. It's really every facet of our business, right? From operations, like how do we respond to this, unprecedented demand? And that's, we reacted very fast. We prioritized our production on our fastest moving items. We, staffed up in terms of our sales force. We obviously put a lot of protocols in place to keep all of our frontline employees safe. That was our number one priority. So it was like, that was kind of like job number one. And then we've done a lot of work from a marketing standpoint to ensure that our messaging was on point, that it was empathetic to what our consumers are going through right now, and also reflected changes in behavior. With being more at home, you see more recipe usage, for instance. So we dialed up our recipe content. So it's really, like I said, kind of impacted all aspects of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the creative part that you were talking to, the marketing side of that. Maybe if we take the shift over to that part, supply chain, I think is fascinating. I've never been in a store where I just work in CPG, so I go up and down the aisles just to take a look. I've never seen Oreo off the shelf in one variety, and the sales continue going up. So I think that's a kudos to the supply chain that you have in place. In terms of creative and whatnot, so our some other data we looked at is just the impact of creative, right? And so we know you should be advertising in market, but then what levers do you have to make sure that your advertising resonates the most? And adaptive creative is something we saw work really well as a whole. And I think a pillar of that, or just a prime example, is the Stay Playful campaign that Oreo put together. Can you talk through a little bit the process of doubling down on that, and kind of how you revamp that strategy to continue making sure that you're resonating accordingly in market with folks?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our campaign, you mentioned it, Stay Playful. It's a campaign we launched about 2 years ago now. And it's really built on our brand purpose, which is all around inspiring moments of playfulness in the world, because we believe that playfulness brings people together. And so when our world was turned upside down and here we are locked at home and, everything has been disrupted in our lives, it was interesting for us to go back to, okay, as a brand that believes in the power of playfulness to bring people together, how do we lean into that? And especially when people are so anxious and there's a lot of uncertainty around us. And what we were really inspired by was how people were finding ways to connect in a playful way, right? Like, you see it in, online dance, like TikTok, challenges, booming. You see it in how people are, doing book clubs and yoga through Zoom. So it was really kind of inspiring to us to see how people were finding ways through technology and other means to keep that playful spirit alive while being at home. And so we really leaned into that. Actually, within 2 weeks of us personally being in lockdown, we had new creative on air. Stay home, stay playful. It sort of followed a lot of the things that worked so well about the Oreo campaign, which is a music-based campaign. We had a really fun, uplifting rap song that we played it to, and we used user-generated content. So we found actually real examples of people keeping that playful spirit alive, and it was like a nice sort of. I think we all felt the fatigue of COVID advertising, right? It was a real downer, honestly. When you're watching the evening news, you're like, oh my God, but this was sort of the juxtaposition against that, right? Which was super, it reminded you yes, times are tough, but let's remember to keep that positive, optimistic spirit alive. That's worked really well for us. And I think because it's right in our wheelhouse. And it's what the world needs right now. And even more so if you think about the challenges that followed, right, is to remember what unites us, what we share in common. So I think that's been super effective for us. And the other thing I would say is, like I mentioned, is the shift, recognizing very quickly that there was going to be a shift in usage behavior, right? And we had the benefit, it's a global brand. We lean a lot on learnings globally, and we actually try when possible to pull content from other markets in our company. And China was ahead of us, right, on the curve. And so they had been through the lockdown. And one of their learnings was they saw a big spike in recipes. And they switched a lot of their digital media over to inspiring recipes with Oreo. Of course, we can't use the Chinese content, but we quickly kind of looked through our library and found we had some great assets, in the U.S. Our Latin American partners had done some excellent work. And so we quickly repurposed those assets and, went live on across digital and social with recipe content. And that's performed really well for us also. So I think it's reacting fast and being insight led, really kind of what are our consumers going through? How are their behaviors changing, and making sure we're being empathetic.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think that's super helpful. It's interesting seeing the perspective as that works through. I have to ask, at any point during that process, and you had such a quick turnaround in 2 weeks, getting creative is unheard of, especially in times where SLAs were bogged down. So kudos to your partners that you work with. Was there questions of if we should even advertise? I know a lot of advertisers were pausing, going dark for multiple reasons, and data keeps telling us you have to stay in market, you have to stay in market. But from a brand perspective, what was there a conversation or a struggle, or was it how'd that go?
No, never. And I think that speaks to our belief and philosophy as an organization. We believe in the power of brand building, not only to drive short-term sales, but long-term brand health. And we didn't need it in Q2, right? From in terms of we were pretty much selling everything we could make. But it it's not just about Q2, right? It's about like if we're putting the right types of messaging out in the world that's of value to our consumers, and we're continuing to build that relationship with them, then it's well worth it. And there's plenty of evidence. I'm sure we've all seen the studies from past. I mean, we haven't lived through a pandemic, right? So we don't have that data. But from past crises, you name them, that the brands that continue to invest and out-invest their competitors emerge much stronger. And that's our focus, right? I mean, we've gained, I was just looking at data earlier this week, we've gained 8 million new buyers on Oreo. Now, Oreo is a very highly penetrated brand. So to gain 8 million new households during the pandemic period is massive. And we've studied those buyers, right? Like they're very happy. They're delighted to be back, to be using Oreo again. Like we're back on their radar. So for us, that's an opportunity. Like, how do we continue to delight them and keep them in the franchise going forward? So yeah, that's why sustained investment is so important to us. And it really isn't a question. We're actually increasing our investment in the back half of the year.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's great hearing it from a brand perspective, because we sit on the data and the research side, and we actually believe that through and through because the data shows it. So seeing brands take that to heart is great. 8 million, that's a huge number, right? Especially for such a highly penetrated brand. So as you transition now into the back half of the year, what is the thought process on the strategy of applying from what you've learned to what is going to be taking place the back half of the year? Is there a loyalty play of having specific messaging and strategies around those new buyers to bring them through the loyalty ladder further up? What is kind of the game plan for the back half of the year?
Yeah. So a lot of the things that we're focused on in the back half of the year were things we were focusing on pre-pandemic, right? We're just doubling down in some certain areas, particularly e-commerce. So our e-commerce business was doubled in the first half of the year. And there was a lot of work that our e-commerce team put in place pre-pandemic that helped us capture, that growth and like out sort of, win on share in e-commerce. So I think for us, and a lot of that was around getting like the assortment right, like having the right, we launched 15 new, we call them e-packs. So they're assortments specifically designed for the e-commerce shopper. And that's really helped us, our business really perform well. So we're going to continue to invest. We're doubling our investment in the back half in e-commerce versus last year. Multicultural, which has been a priority for us, continuing to invest heavily in multicultural, actually have new buyers, multicultural, so like Hispanic, in particular, Hispanics actually have over-indexed on, in terms of new buyers versus retained buyers. So that was quite interesting to see. We're investing in what we call personalization at scale, which is something we've been doing for a while now, but we're continuing to get more savvy around it, which is really about targeted, more tailored, timely messaging. So that's going to be a focus for us. And the other things that we've sort of dug into is there are certain products in our category that are over-indexing with new buyers. So that's helping to inform our supply, right? Like, okay, we need to make sure these items are in supply, and also which ones we need to, promote to keep those consumers in our franchise.
Yeah, the data flow is super important, right? Because you get a new brand buyer or a new household that is trialing the brand. You have one time to make a first impression and then one time to make a second impression. And when they go to reach for that, you have to make sure that the experience is there.
Absolutely. And that's, our number one priority. Well, it's safety in this environment, but then number two is quality. And that's what we look at for, like, are they delighted? Even as we're kind of, maxing out our production, are we continuing to deliver the best product possible? Because that's it. Like, at the end of the day, there's a lot of brand love out there, an emotional connection to the brand, but you have to be delighted every time you open up a pack of Oreos. So that's really the key focus for us.
Yeah, so that actually takes me to an interesting question or point in terms of how you're evaluating success. I know a lot of our clients in market are shifting the way they evaluate performance because, you do historical mixes, that doesn't work with the disruption that was there. Viewability has kind of been questioned now a little bit in terms of what impact that has to actual sales, and you're looking to drive sales. So can you talk through a little bit like the metrics that Oreo uses specifically, both on a top and a lower funnel, and how you balance those, and if that's changed at all post-COVID now, or where we are in this home confined phase as opposed to prior?
Absolutely. I mean, there's several important metrics. I mean, the number one metric is market share. So very focused on driving market share growth. Then we look closely at social KPIs. So level of conversation, sentiment of conversation is actually very important for us as a metric for brand health. Earned media impressions is important because that speaks to like what we're putting out in the world, our consumers and media talking about it, and that's a key driver of our overall ROI. And then, I mean, we do marketing mix. We've gotten much more savvy about how we speed up the time, or shorten the timeline to get insights faster. And then we're testing, individual pieces of creative immediately when they go into market to understand optimization opportunities. Do we need to shift the mix in any way? So that's ongoing as well. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, with the pandemic, I don't think there's been really a big change for us in which KPIs we're looking at. I think they're still all valid, and I think it's the lens to which you look through them. Is it short term? Is it conversion based? So of course, our e-commerce, we look very closely at conversion metrics, versus if it's the stay home, stay playful ad, you're looking a lot more at breakthrough, branding, brand affinity, brand love, those things that are building long-term health. And so it's very much dependent on the objective and the asset we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Is another piece. So we talked about the who to target. We talked about how you're talking to them creative wise. Our data shows that media consumption is through the roof. Right, we're home confined. We're heading in towards a recession. The market might not know it yet, right? But it's the dollars are getting a little tighter. Discretionary income. Folks will be staying more at home. Social, mobile. Connected TV, all the linear TVs, this consumption is going up. What's your take been on making sure that you're finding the right consumer on the right channel with the right creative? Has your media mix shifted in terms of where your dollars go? Or can you talk through that a little bit?
There's been, in general, our mix was in a pretty good place, right? So we continue to have pretty significant buy in TV. And if anything, with the viewership increases, that's paying off well for us. In digital, it's a similar strategy. So like I mentioned, personalization at scale. So we target consumers based on specific interests or behaviors related to the brand. So are you more of a recipe maker? Are you more health conscious? Are you into, sports and entertainment versus something else? So we tailor our creative by consumer cohort or affinity group, as we call them. And I think more than anything for us, it's been about making sure the creative is appropriate during this time frame, right? That's what's been key. And so, but I haven't seen there haven't been any major shifts. We leaned in pretty heavily to how consumers are entertaining themselves at home. So that did inform some shifts in our creative. And so for instance, we did with Save the Children, we did the TikTok challenge, the Oreo Cookie for a Cause challenge, where it was really fun. Cookie, basically, if you move a cookie from your forehead to your mouth, it's kind of like a how fast can you do that sort of thing. And then we donated based on level of participation to Save the Children. That was a real hit in this environment. So there's been some like shifts like that. We're kind of like going where the consumer's going. But in general, I would say we had a very strong mix that was right for this environment.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's, a lot of themes that I'm getting are a consistent theme that as we're going through this process of Oreo's perspective and how he dissected everything and the strategies, it's very much customer centric, right? So we talked about Maslow, Psych 101. Now maybe we'll go Marketing 101, right? Come back to college where the across the 4 Ps, the consumer's got to be in the middle of that. Has that always been as easy to come by as it is now, or do you think the pandemic has kind of reshifted the focus a little bit to be, hey, we really need to double down and understand our consumer more than we have in the past?
I'm blessed to work in an organization that we're hardwired to put consumer first across everything, right? Like we're in a supply chain conversation, we're talking about consumer, and it might be all about the quality, but we're talking about the consumer. And even with sales, we're talking about consumer, but through a shopper lens, right? So it's a part of our, just how we approach everything, which is great. What I would say it's required though is more than ever to be on the pulse of the consumer, like literally day in and day out. I mean, we were when we were putting the Stay Home, Stay Playful out in the market, we were looking at consumer sentiment weekly and seeing how it was changing to understand, because there was a risk of does it seem, well, we didn't want to seem like that we weren't taking it seriously, or that there was almost too much levity in it. So you wanted to make sure it was resonating the right way. So we were tracking very closely kind of how that is sort of aligns with kind of how consumers are thinking and feeling. It should make you feel better. It shouldn't make you put you in a position where, it frustrates you, right? Because when we recognize that there was a lot of people are going through really hard times. They're being furloughed. Their family members are sick. God forbid, our consumers, there's certain ones that have been sick. So it's really, we've had to be much more on the pulse. And actually our global analytics team, insights and analytics team, it was impressive. It started in March. They put in place weekly surveys across all of our major markets, and we're able to look at consumer perception, sentiment, usage behavior, outlook, so we could start getting kind of foresight into where things were going to go into the future, how consumers were thinking about it. And that was incredibly helpful for us to just make sure we were keeping our pulse on the consumer sentiment.
Got it. It sounds like basically as we're walking through and the pandemic kind of kicked off, it sounds like the infrastructure of Mondelez as all international as a whole was there, right? And this just allowed that to the wheel to spin a little bit faster, right? And understand, prioritize a little bit.
I think the other thing too is we talked about the Stay Home, Stay Playful happening in 2 weeks, and that was work from our agency, the Martin Agency. Really brilliant work. It's required us as a team, right, client and agency, to be very decisive. This is, we're not going to concept 50 different ideas, right? It's this is our position. This is, off to the races. My job is to just break down barriers so we're not caught up in bureaucracy or, many layers of approvals. We got to, speed is of the essence. And I think that's been really important, because you can have the best insight and pulse on kind of how consumers are feeling, how their usage behaviors are changing. But if you don't have the ways of working and the procedures in place to move fast, then it's not really an advantage. So I think that's been really important for us is react. We have to react quickly. And it's hard in this kind of environment where, we've seen major crises one after another, right? It's very difficult, and it really challenges us. but I think we're doing pretty well. I'm proud of the team.
Yeah. This year is one for the books. Every month there's something else. I think the only thing that hasn't phased this industry has been the murder hornet flock that ended up not taken, or not
Thank goodness.
Fruition, but we're okay with that. We're okay with that.
Yeah, right.
A couple questions that actually just came through from the audience, so I'm going to read these through to you. For the first one, what do you see as the biggest future challenge to retail and e-com? And on the other side, the biggest opportunity?
Well, I think it's probably not the best way to answer it, but I think that what I would say, we've seen big channel shifts, right? And it's primarily that e-commerce shift, and that I believe it's here to stay, right? And I think people that maybe have been on the fringes, they were buying some items, some categories online. I think the lockdown, really pushed them over the edge, like fully into e-commerce, and now they're very comfortable, right? They see the conveniences, they see the value, and so I think that is a major shift. And so I would say huge opportunity for those organizations that are well positioned and they've done all the legwork to sort of take advantage of that shift. Big risk if you haven't, right? So I think so that's really important. I think there's some like nuanced things like consumers are spending a lot less time in store in general, like they're in and out, right? So that has implications to how you think about shelf organization, display, assortment. So if you're not spending as much time browsing the cookie shelf, you have to be much more maybe focused in your portfolio of having the right items at the right price, kind of at arm's length. And I think some of those behaviors, I mean, who knows completely, but like, I think some of those behaviors are going to stick, where you might be, just more efficient in and out, just as people in general try to avoid unnecessary contact, where they can. So there's some specific things like that around just kind of like shopper insight that we have to think through. But I think the massive one coming out of this is that e-commerce.
So from what we see, e-com is growing rapidly, right? But it's still less than, it's about 7%, I think eMarketer just said, in food and beverage, right, as a whole. Do you, as you've been making the shift, has there been always a focus on direct to consumer, or kind of as you've been doing that, obviously consumer purchasing, it's been changed through this process as a whole. Do you think this is, as you've been approaching it, is there a different way that you develop talking to those consumers about e-com, different messaging, or is it still the overall brand perspective? Or is there any nuances to how you communicate when you're trying to drive D2C?
I mean, it's much more down funnel, right? Like in our assets that are geared toward driving conversion, I think you'll see it, much more focused on the consumption occasion. It almost plays, if you think about the role that end cap serves in a grocery store, right? Because it is an impulse-driven category. That's how we leverage it in a physical environment. It's like just be present outside of the aisle to disrupt people and remind them to grab it. I think as we think about e-com world, media is so important, and I think it's really about creating that same reminder and desirability through our e-commerce content. So it's about delicious food, it's about new products, it's about reminding, in the case of Oreo, it could be the ritual, reminding you to, twist, lick, and dunk your Oreos. What a playful moment with you and your kids. It's like, so it's going to be much more focused on the consumption moment or the attributes of the product. So that's what I would say, kind of the major difference between more of our equity versus conversion tactics.
Got it. Another question from the viewers or the attendees. When it comes to communicating with your consumers, how do you think about brand purpose, and how does that impact your approach to marketing?
It's super important. I mentioned earlier that our purpose is about bringing the world together, really making the world a more joyful, accepting place through the power of like playfulness. And so that can manifest in many different ways. It can manifest in the types of stories we tell in advertising. It can manifest, like I mentioned, the Cookie for a Cause challenge. So, what we really focus as a brand that's long been about families and children, and connecting families and kids. One of the biggest challenges that we saw as we entered into the pandemic was kids that relied on schools for food for education, they weren't getting the support that they needed. And so when we looked at like, how can we show our support? It was, we joined up with Save the Children, and because they were really using their resources to help with at-home education, to help kids that needed connectivity to educational resources and food. And so that was important to us, and that was very much informed by our roots as a brand that's always been about bringing joyful moments to kids and families. And so that was it informed kind of who we support and how we support them in this time. Similarly, I don't know if you're familiar, Patrick, but we've been a longtime supporter of the Pride movement. Mm-hmm. And this year, when the parades, typically we'll show up at the parades, and in a sign of our support. This year, obviously, the parades were canceled. We launched a campaign called Proud Parents, where we really encouraged parents of LGBTQ children to come out in support of their child, as we know that's one of the most important bonds we have, right, as people, as individuals, is with our parents. And for a parent to show their acceptance is the most important thing that they can do, especially as they're coming out, right? So it's like, that felt very right for Oreo, right? As a brand that's always been about that parent-child bond, like how can we encourage and inspire parents to really come out and show their support? And we activated that in partnership with PFLAG, which is the largest ally organization. And it was a huge success for us, right? And when we say success from that perspective, it's really about level of social conversation. Have we inspired people? Have we gotten that message out? And you're going to continue to see more from us on that platform in the back half of the year. But I think purpose is absolutely critical. And a lot of times, we default to cause marketing. Cause is important. I just gave you some examples of how we've done cause recently. But I think ideally a purpose should inspire everything that you do as a brand. So it's like how we think about the consumption moment, the playfulness of the ritual of twist licking and dunking. We think about the barriers in the world that stand in the way of playfulness and how we as a brand can help break down those barriers. So I think it goes well beyond just cause and communication. It should inform everything we do.
Yeah. A great initiative, and I think everything that we keep talking through. If there's one thing I'm taking away from the session and Oreo's perspective is just customer centric, right? The customer is everything, and every component is a branch off of that. And it sounds like once you get that philosophy down, the other parts start just falling into place because what the purpose is to make sure that you're connecting with the consumer.
Absolutely.
This is just an example of that. I don't know how much more time we have. I'll ask one more question, but Lauren, feel free to kick me off whenever we're over. What changes are you seeing with your competitive set? Has the category expanded, or has the increase for at-home baking or cooking had any effect on that?
So I would say it has expanded. Like if you just think at a macro sense, like total snacking, sweet snacking, let's say, it's absolutely expanded. I mean, and if you think about categories like bars, right? Like with the entrance of Kind bars and all the different players that followed. Within cookies, there's been growth among premium cookies. We actually, Mondelez, the parent company of Oreo, acquired Tate's. So it kind of, Tate's has that local artisan kind of bake shop, feel great product. And so that was an opportunity for us to enter that segment of the market. And you just see, like, I mean, if you just look at all the innovation that's coming out in the chocolate candy categories, it's very dynamic. So yeah, I don't think that's not nothing new, right? We've just continued to see that, and we'll continue to see it, right? As consumers' needs continue to evolve, we're going to see new brands and new segments created. And as a company, we're very much focused on that. Like we basically have an incubator, kind of we call it Snack Futures, where we build new propositions and test and learn in-house and make minority investments. And those that pay off, we scale. Earlier this year, we bought, we acquired Give and Go, which is a big player in the fresh bakery section of the store. And they have a very strong presence in Canada, also in the US, like they're growing. But that gave us access to a whole new part of the store, right? Where we can bring our beloved brands, our great flavors into an area that's highly incremental to our core business. So, yeah, it's dynamic for sure. And I think we're just doing everything we can to take advantage of those pockets of growth.
Awesome.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for being here today. One last question, Justin and Patrick, I have to ask you this too. What is your favorite Oreo flavor? Like specialty Oreo flavor?
Patrick, I'll let you go first. I don't want to bias you.
Oh no, the lemon is my favorite. I out of all things, I like citrus and tart, and that's it. I mean, but nothing beats the just the Oreo. Like I just think of myself as a kid coming home from playing sports out at the park, and then coming inside after my mom yells at me to wash up, and then having some Oreos with my friends across the couch. Like that nostalgia memory is there. But as my palate's matured, maybe on a certain day, I'd go with the lemon flavor.
Okay.
Very nice. I love that. That's that comfort. Patrick just brought that comfort, that nostalgia to life for us. So I love double stuff. Good old double stuff. It's my go-to. Yeah.
Nothing better than that. We used to have fun back in the office days, bringing the most random Oreo flavor that we could find. And I'll tell you, Target does a great job. Having watermelon and pumpkin spice.
They do a phenomenal job. They really do. Yeah.
They do. You guys do. So yeah, thank you guys for being here today. Come back anytime.
Absolutely.
We're always here.
Thanks, Patrick,
Awesome.
and thanks, Lauren.
Hey,
Appreciate
Justin,
it.
thanks so much. Thanks, BI. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. All right. So that was awesome. And we're going to keep this momentum going. We have, for our next session, we have Yvette Davis. She is the Associate Director of Brand Marketing at Sam's Club. And joining us back again is our good friend TK, the Director of Industry Solutions at Arm Treasure Data. They are joining just in a moment. It always takes a second for our speakers to get loaded up. Oh, there's a friendly face. How are you, Yvette?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Happy Thursday. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna disappear and let you guys kick things off.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks, Lauren. Hi, Yvette. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. How's the weather where you are at?
The weather's great. I'm in Texas. It is extremely hot. So I'm loving that.
Super excited to have this conversation with you. I thought we could kick it off, with if you could share what has really changed over the last 6 months or so at Sam's Club. Every one of us did not anticipate the effort and the changes that are required to just do things that we take for granted, and I was wondering if you could share from your perspective, what are the learnings, what are the key changes that has happened over the last few months?
Right. I mean, like so many others, what hasn't changed? There have been so many changes within our business, but it's great to be a part of a company where we can kind of like always be fluid and agile and move as our consumers move. I would say the things that like I've really noticed being in my position have been the need to get real-time insights from our members. So we're constantly, doing surveys, quant and qual testing to get feedback from members, but to be able to get it in real time has been a huge adjustment. And our business and our insights team, they've been amazing at helping us just constantly know how the member is thinking and what mindset they're in. I think the other huge one I would say is, like a lot of retailers, I feel like we lean in heavily in product marketing and really talking about, here are some great products we have, or highlighting sales and like, hey, we're having a sale on these items. But ever since March, we've kind of really started to lean in specifically in our social channels with humanity. And we've seen that the engagement from our social channels has just significantly increased when we're leading with humanity versus product first. And I think that's amazing. I think it's something that we've talked about as an organization, and you really have to find like what's that perfect balance. And we've just seen it be significantly successful for us to lead with humanity, whether it was, the thank you ad that our CEO put out, and it was, kind of like our first national TV run, or, just really having the frontline associate perspective and getting their stories out in front of our members to see just like how they're even coping with everything that's going on.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, Sam's Club is a division within Walmart, but independently, if Sam's Club existed as an independent retailer, I believe you would be a top 10 retailer in the US. So I was wondering if you could share how your marketing organization looks like at Sam's Club. It would be helpful to get some visibility into the functions and responsibility. Is marketing within one organization or distributed within different groups, stores, different categories, merchandise, et cetera, et cetera. And also maybe the two items that you alluded to earlier, which is the shift to real-time insights and real, humanity. How has that changed the marketing organization?
Yeah. So a lot in there. Remind me if I forget anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the first one I would say was like how our organization's kind of set up. So we're really, we have our marketing and membership organization kind of work hand in hand together. And so we have a lot of people that are headquartered in our Bentonville office, and there are kind of different teams within those sectors. So of course we have a team dedicated to membership, which is going to focus on like our acquisition efforts. And then you have kind of, our brand and social team, which they do a lot of kind of brand marketing and, run our social channels. And then you have a engagement marketing team. So Sam's Club has these kind of key events that we have every year, whether it's our instant savings booklet that goes out 8 times a year. And so that's an event in the club, or if it's, holiday, or what used to be one-day sales events, which now are transitioning into week-long events. Small plug for Sam's Club. Don't forget to shop the August sales event that starts August 1st in club, and you can shop online as early as July 31st at 11:01 p.m. Central Standard Time. Small plug, sorry. Go shop. But and then you go to San Bruno, where you have like our product marketing team, as well as we have some people who sit out there in membership that really kind of manage it on like our loyalty program and services, member services. So real huge marketing organization, not as large as Walmart's, but still, we're huge in our own right and very good about being agile and extremely member obsessed and making sure that we're, following what the member mindset is to make sure we're delivering the best experience.
Awesome.
I think your other question was around the humanity part and how that is shaping the organization. I think it's just, I feel like we all get a sense, like a good feeling hearing the stories of like how associates are dealing with, you know, the state of the world right now. So just being able to see how like our associates are, frontline associates are taking the extra steps to service in the club. Also hearing like how our organization is doing things to always keep the member first in mind, their safety and their health. I think a lot of, we're getting a lot of feedback, great feedback from our members on the things that we're doing. One of the things that, you know, I'm really proud of our organization for is how they adjusted so quickly within 6 days to get our senior concierge service off the ground. So from ideation to implementation, just, you know, 6 days to really get that program started. But even, you know, reminding our customers of the great technology that we already had established, which was Scan and Go, and how they can shop the club, you know, contact free, and really get in and out. So really just reminding our members of those great services and benefits, and you know, keeping them first and foremost as we're servicing the community.
Awesome, thank you. My understanding is, you know, Sam's Club is the innovator typically within the Walmart family, and a lot of ideas are first tested there, technologies are tested there. You talked about the concierge service. I know you've had double-digit growth in revenues in the e-commerce channel, and curbside was rolled out and things like that. I was wondering if you could share your experiences and the organization's experience around moving customer-driven innovations so quickly to serve the customer at, you know, the store is coming to the customer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think it really comes from being able to tap into a member base. So, you know, and that's one of the biggest difference between us and Walmart is that we are a membership organization and we are able to get that feedback from our members. I feel like in a more rapid manner. So I think, you know, just being able to tap into those members and understand like what we do to service you better, like what are the things that you need during this time period, and then to have a great product team and great tech team that can, you know, take that knowledge and, you know, get to work to make sure that we're delivering on kind of how our members want to shop with us. And I think that's the great thing. Like we could definitely say like, hey, we have this business model and it's been working for us for years, but to be able to take the feedback from members and say like, this is how they want to shop with us. So how do we, you know, basically optimize the experience to meet the member demands?
Thank you for sharing that. A lot of people actually are not maybe completely aware or sensitive to the fact that Walmart does not really have a loyalty program until maybe the mobile app. But Sam's Club has this great treasure that of data and relationships that you can work on. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the mobile app? I use the Sam's Club mobile app. I was wondering if you know, your customers extensively use it or have used it increasingly during the lockdown. Do you see the app used in different use cases from a marketing perspective? Are there opportunities to leverage data collected and also, you know, communicate and engage with the customer from the mobile app perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I love our mobile app as well. I think I know my favorite thing about our app is Scan and Go. So any Sam's Club shoppers out there, if you have not leveraged Scan and Go, you are literally missing out on the experience. But to be able to scan items from my mobile device and also check out and go straight to the exit, you know, greeter and really get in and out of the club so fast. I think that's amazing that we have that technology and that capability for our members. We've definitely seen, it's one of those things like our Scan and Go already had strong awareness with our members, but usage was a little low. So during COVID, we've definitely seen an increase in usage, which is amazing because now we're getting feedback from members like, I never even knew this existed. And it's like, it's been around for a couple of years now. And but I think, sometimes it happens that way. Like technology comes out before people are really ready to adopt it. So we're definitely seeing more and more people adopt the technology and leverage it when they're shopping in the club. I think the other thing is, finding new ways how to use like push technology. So we're definitely leveraging that as members are walking into the club and being able to just remind them of, whether it's like our instant savings sale that's going on, or, other types of events, or, now testing and figuring out how we can leverage, push notifications for more personalization and being able to kind of be more targeted in the communication with our members.
So you talked earlier about Shop from Your Car, which is the concierge service that you rolled out in 6 days or a week or so.
Yeah.
And I believe during the lockdown, Sam's Club was the first to offer a concierge service, if I'm not mistaken. To switch gears a little bit from a marketing perspective, the concierge service is not only a perfect opportunity to help the customer engage with the customer in person, but also an opportunity for personalization and having that one-to-one communication with the customer. And I was wondering if you could share more on how, the current stage of the program and what might be, from a marketing perspective, some opportunities around this concierge program.
Yeah, I think we have an opportunity to try to really lean even more in like predictive shopping and we have the data to understand, how our members are shopping, what they're shopping. So, it would be nice to see that technology evolve to really, not necessarily have to have the member tell us what want to buy, but for us to kind of like say, oh, we already like, you've been here and we see that you like this and this. Should I like add those to the cart this week as well, or whatever the case may be. So I definitely think there are opportunities to continue to like personalize the experience. But I would say that is the same as, with the mobile app, and how we can continue to lean in and really drive even more personalized experiences there as well. So I think that, over the next couple of months and, year, you'll really see how Sam's Club is leaning even heavier into our digital technology, where we feel like we're really driving convenience for the member to really focus on like how we can be more personalized in the experiences.
Got it. Is the concierge service expected to expand beyond the audience of, my understanding is it's just for seniors and at-risk members. Is it going to be broadly available to all the members in the future?
We have had those conversations. I think it's, just making sure that we're properly staffed to keep up with that type of demand, because we wouldn't want any member to have a negative experience. But so the conversations are taking place, but I don't have a definitive answer on that today.
Okay, thank you.
It would be nice, though. I would like to have concierge service myself.
Especially, there's a selfish reason why I asked you that.
I'm still walking in the club.
So earlier today, I spoke about digital transformation and how customer data plays a big role to drive that transformation. Sam's Club and the Walmart family is a leader in using data in every single thing. And I was wondering, is digital transformation, customer engagement, using data and building more loyalty among your members with data, some of which you alluded to a little bit earlier, is this very topical from an investment perspective? And if you can provide us, some color and maybe commentary around what is happening, what is the aspirations and things like that, that'd be helpful.
Oh, yes. I mean, we, like, as the organization, and I've probably already said this a couple of times, we are very member obsessed. And so having that mindset and knowing that, we always want to deliver like the best member experience means that we have to invest in ensuring that we're, understanding our members and like the mindsets that they have. So like I said, having our insights team going from these kind of longer lead times of insights to now doing it more real time and, on a bi-weekly basis, has been really helpful. Even from, I would say, a digital transformation standpoint, I think, we're always having those conversations, but recently I've been a part of conversations where we're talking about like, how do we optimize the online experience? And a lot of that came from sitting in focus groups with our members and just hearing, well, what do you think about our website? And like, if it's not our website, who is the best in class? It doesn't have to be a retailer, but, once again, wanting to make sure that they're having the best experience with our with the company. I think another thing that I keep on saying I think, but I know another thing that we're also very focused on is ensuring that we're helping the member understand like the value of their membership. So to your comment about loyalty programs, like we have a team in San Bruno that's really dedicated to building out, loyalty programs and finding partners. Like we announced, I want to say last year, like our partnership with Pandora and like how you can get a discount on, on Pandora by being a Sam's Club member. So we're always really trying to heighten the awareness around those type of opportunities so that our members know that it goes beyond the shopping experience, but there's additional value in your membership.
Awesome. So we have lots of questions from the audience. And
Lots of questions.
Yes, I want to switch a little bit to their questions. What do you see as the biggest future challenge to retail and e-commerce? And what is the biggest opportunity?
That's a very good question. The biggest challenge to the future of retail, and e-commerce. I think like when I think about it from a Sam's Club perspective, I think that for us, it's trying to significantly increase the omni-channel shopper. So you still have a lot of people, like I think about my own parents and they're not really that old. And they are still kind of hesitant to shop online, to put their credit card, information in a digital environment. So to me, I think that's one of the biggest hurdles. I think any retailer is, yes, millennials and the younger generations, it's like second nature to them. But, when I think about Sam's Club, a lot of our member base is still significantly, older. So how do we make them comfortable with all these digital tools, especially as we roll out new technology? Like, how do we continue to just make them comfortable? And the other one was, what am I really excited for?
The biggest opportunity.
The biggest opportunity. I would say the biggest opportunity, once again, I think, it's how do you generate an experience? And you, like, especially when it comes to brick and mortar, like how do you make the member only want to shop at your location and not go to 2 or 3 different, stores? And I think it's beyond just the product that you have. I think it's also how do you make shopping an experience? I think that is an amazing opportunity. And then also taking the member mindset and maybe arranging your retailer how most members potentially shop. So I know one of the things that we tested was, we have our bakery in one place in the club, but then we have some items like party trays, so like fruit and cheese trays in a different section of the club. But a lot of times if people are buying cupcakes, they may also need like the party trays. So being able to like put those closer to each other in the, in club environment, because the member probably will purchase both when they see that they're like together. So I think just finding those opportunities to think about like how members shop and their mindset, and like how do you make your retail environment reflect that.
Thank you. To build on that is maybe the premise of the second question. I actually read a recent New York Times article on how books are selling a lot. Retailers are, putting the books right next to the toilet paper, and so it is. I mean, so that is an example of how merchandise has changed.
Yeah.
And are you looking for opportunities to change and alter the portfolio of merchandise? And for example, if you were from an e-commerce perspective, shipping larger units as opposed to items of one, is that something that you're considering?
I can't speak as much in detail as that, but just I know there are some examples in light of COVID where we have went back and reevaluated pack sizing and made some adjustments. So if you think about Sam's Club, being having items in bulk and our large quantities, and members really being able to go there for like their party or entertaining or gathering needs. We know that a lot of people aren't gathering in the numbers that they were pre-COVID. So there have definitely been instances where we've kind of gone through and, made some adjustments to pack sizes to still be able to cater to our member base.
Thank you. The next question is about communicating with your members. When it comes to communicating with the members, how do you think about the brand purpose? You mentioned humanity earlier, and how does that impact your approach to marketing? Is it changed significantly, altered, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so we in around, I think 2018, we really started to kind of refresh our brands. And so not necessarily like our brand purpose, but our positioning is expect something special. And that definitely comes to life in how we talk about our brand today and products. Sam's Club has amazing quality products, and I think that people aren't always aware of that. So really trying to find that right balance in pushing a price and value message, but really kind of a shift into like, this is great quality. I think, it's understood that you're getting a value if you shop at Sam's Club. So realizing that we don't have to push so hard necessarily on the value and the cost, but really show kind of like the value of the product. I mean, there are great stories. I'm working on a project now with our merchants, and there are some amazing stories where like our asparagus, where it's flown in from Peru to give an additional 6-day shelf life to the member, to that freshness. So there are like stories like that we really want to help our members understand, so that they know the quality of product that they're getting at Sam's Club.
Awesome.
And I think that's that expect something special part.
Yeah.
And then I think if you continue to watch the brand, you'll notice like we're bringing in our home area brands that are probably unexpected that you would find at a Sam's Club. And I think once again, that goes back to the positioning of, really driving value to the member beyond price, and that they can expect, whether it's a unique item or an unexpected brand, or just some really cool, innovative products at Sam's Club.
Thank you. So there's a question around consumer behavior. Safety, the trending of new consumer behavior in the last 6 months. Obviously, safety is one thing that just popped up and is top of mind for everyone. But what would be helpful is perhaps sharing what are the other trends from your membership in terms of consumer behavior that is of particular importance to you and marketeers. And if your members are consuming media differently as compared to last year.
Yeah, I would say outside of safety, I think the other thing is just transparency. So we are really leaning in and trying to make sure that we're driving transparency in, inventory and, what's in stock and what's not in stock. So I would say for the majority of the focus groups I've sat in with our members, that's kind of been like the top one. Like, how can you continue to let me know what's in stock, or really just let me know what's in stock, outside of like how we're driving safety within the club, which we're constantly communicating that. So I think those are kind of the big consumer behavior shifts I've seen. As far as consuming media, we're still seeing significant engagement on social media, significant engagement with our email. We're seeing, push notifications, people are engaging there. So a lot of the ways that we talk to our members are still in the same manner. I think mainly on social is probably where we're seeing the most increases in engagement.
Thank you. On safety, I mean, something that I've seen is Walmart now has health clinics rolling out, and so does CVS and Walgreens. Is this the thing now? Are we going to see our doctors, and physicians in retail stores? I was wondering, I mean, it doesn't have to be just a Sam's Club perspective, just your opinion on what's happening in retail. Safety has become very important, and at the same time, clinics are moving into retail stores. I was curious what you think about it.
Yeah, I actually think it's a great idea from a personal opinion. When I think about it, I think about the first I thought about Walgreens and how they had the care centers, or maybe it was CVS. But to me, it's a way to get in and get out without, I feel like, the process of trying to go to your doctor. So to me, it's kind of like the quick service alternative to going to the doctor. I like it because if I think now, if I want to go see my primary care physician, then I have to call let's say pre-COVID, I have to call, I have to, schedule an appointment. They probably are booked. So they're probably like, oh, you can come in 4 weeks, 5 weeks from now. And it may just be a common cold. Whereas you have these, small, quick service health facilities that I feel like the turn to get in is a lot quicker and probably a lot more cost efficient, to find out that I just have a common cold.
Awesome. So maybe the last question I have for you is, and this has surprised me a little bit too, which is retailers in the COVID era have shared a lot of best practices very openly. And I know Walmart has done it. I know Sam's Club has done a little bit of it. Target has done it. And this was not always the case, right? Everyone kept their secrets and operated around their secrets. Is there going to be more of this, in your opinion, or is this going to go away after we, get back to normal?
I really think it's consumer driven. I think more so than ever, consumers are demanding that transparency from the organizations or companies that they frequent with. And so I think that, as people continue to demand that, then organizations will continue to showcase best practices. I also feel like it's okay because it's not necessarily like we have anything per se to hide. We're confident in our positioning and of course want to continue to grow as a company, but I think we have a good relationship with our members and want to be transparent with them so that they feel that connection as well.
Awesome, thank you. I think we are done with the questions from the audiences. Is there something that you want to talk about, from a perspective of what's the rest of the year going to look for you and Sam's Club? I know it's extremely unpredictable, but I was curious, at least from an maybe it's hopeful, aspirational, if you could share some perspective on the rest of the year that might be helpful for a lot of people to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a place where we are trying to predict that as well. For so many years, it's kind of like you can predict how the consumer will behave. And I think for us, we just want to be ready for when consumers are ready as well to kind of go back to normal. My personal opinion, and maybe this is because this is how I feel, by the time Thanksgiving comes around, I'm going to want to have a big gathering. I'm going to be like, I don't care. Unless you are showing very clear COVID symptoms, you're welcome to come over. Because I just think, I feel like it's the same reason that you have networks like Hallmark and Lifetime showing Christmas movies now, because that season just does something to people. And I feel like we're going to get into holiday and people are going to be like, I just want to go back to normal and I don't even care.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yvette. Lauren?
Yeah, hi TK.
Hi.
Yeah, Yvette, I think you're right. I think we're seeing a little of that with summer right now. People, they're cooped up, and I definitely think you're right. By the time the end of the year, and we're already seeing the 2020 memes. We're really going to be feeling it in 4 or 5 more months too. So yes, I think you're right. We'll be like, we'll be eating our Thanksgiving dinner with masks on, but still
right.
Exactly. So no, I think you're right there, and we really appreciate you guys both coming on. I know both of you behind the scenes have a really crazy schedules, so we appreciate you guys taking an hour out of your day to join us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, TK. It was great chatting with you.
Likewise, Yvette. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Awesome. See you guys soon. All right. So for our last session, we're excited to have Barbara List join us. She is the VP of Marketing for Merrick Pet Care. And our good friend, Zach Alter, he is the VP of Strategic Accounts at Jukin Media. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
Hey, Barbara.
This is the first time I'm seeing myself, so I need to acclimate.
Oh yeah, I'm usually fixing to fix stuff up. I think we're all doing that. What's going on, guys? You doing okay today?
Yeah. Hanging in. I'm actually back in the office, so kind of braving the real world.
Good for you.
So I know.
Awesome, cool. Well, I'll let you guys chat. I know you have some stuff prepared, and then I'll pop in towards the end.
Okay.
Great. All right. Have a good time.
Thanks. Hi, Barbara.
Hey, Zach. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm still good.
Are you good, though? We discussed this yesterday. Like, everyone to the form answer is good, I'm fine. But, like, if you could really be honest, what would you say? And you don't have to in this.
Right. Well, I'd say what I said to you yesterday is I'm just trying to stay sane and not gain another 10 pounds and keep the glitter out of my workspace at home. So.
Yeah. Oh, parenting. So we'll start with introductions. Barbara and I obviously have we've known each other for a little while. So, but you all may not know us. So, excited to be here speaking with you. Quickly, my name is Zach Alter. I'm with Juke and Media. We are in sort of the real life video business. So we find and acquire sort of the best user generated video as it's shared by real people across the world. A lot of that is cat videos and pet videos, and we own one of the largest online pet communities. And we work with brands to leverage that video and content, creative, and media, and we've done that actually with Merrick. But I'm not very interesting. Barbara is significantly more interesting. She actually got it. She got into Michigan where I didn't. So there's that. So Barbara, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Merrick, and then we'll take it away.
Thank you. You give me too much credit. So I'm Barbara Liss. I am the VP of Marketing at Merrick. As was said, I am responsible for all of our advertising, marketing, communications, as well as our e-commerce marketing efforts. I'm sure all of you with dog and cats have heard of us, and if not, hopefully you will look us up after today. But we're a natural line of pet food. We've been around since 1988. We were family founded by Garth Merrick, who started the company in Texas. And while we've got offices kind of in a couple more cities, we're still kind of based out of his office in Hereford, Texas, the beef capital of the world. And we're still kind of really true to our Texas roots and kind of putting out the best food out there.
And you said it yesterday, like there are people who literally like stuff the carrots and the vegetables, like hand pack the food, right?
We kind of liken ourselves to a craft brewery of the pet food. And so if you were to go down there, we're actually one of the only pet food that owns our own cannery. And the folks down there on the line, some of our wet food, they hand stuff baby carrots, potatoes, chicken wings. I mean, it's literally the exact same produce you would see at your grocery store or Sam's Club. I'll plug the folks before us. So yeah, the food is incredible, truly.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So natural pet food, quality, premium is sort of at the core of everything you've done and
Yep.
that you do. And so you guys had like, and still have this nice business and everything's humming along, and then 2020 hits and it all goes to hell. So like, you know, probably a lot of the webinars and conversations that folks have had, I think it's still interesting to me 5-6 months in to dig into how companies and brands have and continued to adjust, right? I think this is not a moment in time situation, but rather a new way of living and doing business that we'll be in for a while. So I'd love to dig into some of the shifts and trends and changes and your guys' response and where we go from here.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the pet category is really interesting, right? Like, you know, where people buy their pet food. Some buy them at the sort of the traditional pet specialty stores, Petsmart, Petco. There's been obviously a big ecom push with Amazon and Chewie over the last number of years. Talk to us about like where your distribution was, where it is, how you're seeing changes in buying and how your strategy has maybe adjusted for each of those channels in the last 6 months-ish.
Yeah. Well, I think first, just kind of taking that step back to when COVID first hit, being a manufacturing company, in some ways we're fortunate because our business has been able to continue to operate and it's a necessity. But at the same time, everything we did in terms of how we go to market, how we produce our food had to be kind of stopped and checked. And so making sure all of our safety protocols are in play. How do you continue to get folks at work just to make the food? I mean, we've got a lot of people down in Texas who are scared to go to work. And so first and foremost, it was how do we take care of our employees? How do we make sure we're ready to pivot for them? And then right after that comes our pet parents. And so those of you with animals, I mean, that's just as important as your own kids. And in some instances, especially after being home with them for 4 months, more important. And people want to really make sure that they can still get their pet food. And that was first and foremost in our mind. How do we make sure that we can continue at capacity? How do we make sure we can continue to deliver food? So once we kind of put in all of those processes and protocols, then we went to, okay, what is changing in the marketplace and how are people buying their pet food? And I think you kind of alluded to it. We have an interesting distribution strategy where we are committed to pet specialty. So we are only in Petco, Petsmart, those local pet stores, and then online with Amazon and and Chewie. So we're not in big box retailers, we're not in Walmart, we're not in Targets, et cetera. And so for us, it was like, okay, people aren't going into the stores. So what does that mean? Huge shift to online. In addition to a huge shift online, there was a huge change in how they purchase. So just like people were purchasing and kind of hoarding, I'm not going to call anyone out, but paper towels and wipes, same thing was happening for pet food. And so we kind of took a step back right away and said, how do we make sure we're hitting these people where they are? We had just kind of started our e-commerce journey. So how do we quickly accelerate it from a content perspective to a supply chain perspective? We were fortunate, we'd started, so we just had to step on the gas a little bit. But it's been interesting to see how things have started to come back to normal and figure out what is next and what changes are short term and what are forever.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think there are changes that we probably thought were short term that we're quickly realizing are at least medium term, if not long term, and permanent shifts and changes. You said local pet stores, independent pet stores. Like I think that's probably something that a lot of people forget about, right? Like in this ecosystem, a lot of consumers are thinking about, okay, I'm going to Target or I'm going to Chewie. But these local pet stores, especially with Merrick, a brand that is premium, natural, tell us about like what that's been like to work with smaller independent pet stores across the country and how that strategy might differ from working with Chewie or Petsmart.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough, just like with all kind of small businesses across America. I think in many ways, those are the ones hardest hit. And so we did everything we could to continue to support them. So we quickly kind of went to our sales team and said, let us know who's doing buy online, pick up out in front of store. And so we edited our website to kind of highlight some of those places to make sure people had access to them. And I think what we've also seen, though, is as the market has started to turn back on and as those stores open up, I do think a lot of consumers are looking for those opportunities to give back to some of those smaller stores. And that is where there's a lot of loyalty. I think somewhat different than some of the bigger box pet retail stores. It's a lot easier for someone to say, you know what, Jim at my local pet store, he knows who I am. He's given me all my advice. And so people are starting to go back into those stores. They really want to support local. And I think that's been a benefit. But it's, you know, those guys are having to accelerate really quickly. A lot of them don't have the sophistication around an e-commerce platform. They didn't have the ability to pivot as quickly. And so we're a brand that was built in independent pet. And so we're trying to do everything we can to continue to support those guys. We just launched a new product called Full Source, which is only available at Petco and Independent Pet. So continuing to provide reason for people to shop at these stores to get these incredible foods that you can't just get anywhere.
One thing that just came to mind, and it's really interesting, is like internally, and I'm imagine you can't go into it deeply, but your metrics, your KPIs have to be consistently adjusting as well, because where you think, and I don't pretend to know how you measure it, you think, okay, we're going to sell X amount in brick and mortar and X amount online. Like that's just rip it up, toss it out the window, right?
Yep. So there we go. We're just bringing it for the rest of the year. You know, we do have KPIs and measures, and I think everybody in every business is kind of like, hey, the beginning of the year, I thought I'd get X% from Amazon and X% for Chewie and X% from Petco and PetSmart. And that's definitely out the window. We've seen, you know, our retail partners decline. We've seen a huge increase at Amazon. But at the end of the day, our eyes are really on what is that total number and how do we make sure we're adjusting to get there, but how do we, where we are seeing slight declines again, how do we continue to pivot? How do we think how people are shopping at a Petco pet store? They've done a great job also trying to really accelerate their e-commerce capabilities and their buy online pickup in store. And so everybody's working really hard to kind of rethink things based on consumer behavior.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, we're all going to have a weird asterisk at the end of 2020 when it comes to every number. We just had a meeting today on our marketing mix model. We're talking about last year and some of the category issues. And and next year is going to be another big, just
right.
Who knew? So we'll see.
next year could be very interesting because, the availability of a vaccine or whatever could make the first half and the second half of next year look dramatically different from each other. So yeah, we're in it for a little while. So let's talk about in-store for a little bit. You're a brand that has long relied on retail associates, in-store brand ambassadors, basically educating and making customers aware of Merrick and its benefits sort of at or very close to the point of purchase.
Yep.
That was in the world where people would go into Petsmart and know that they maybe needed dog food, but were going to rely on themselves or others to educate because they had some time to be in the store. When people go in the store today, it's an assumption, but I would say a pretty good assumption. They're going in knowing what they want and they're leaving, right? They're in and out. So how do you replace that hand-to-hand combat, if you will, that hand-to-hand education with consumers with stuff that takes place virtually or digitally?
Yeah, maybe we should buy a lot of pet content.
Probably.
Right? Do you like how I did that? No, listen, I think, we talked about this the other day, but that is a huge concern for us and something that we're thinking about. We are a brand that was built on that, hand-to-hand combat and pet specialty retailers where they fed our food and people come in and they trust the local guy. We are not an advertising built brand. We have advertising in the market, but it's very small compared to what we spend on our training programs for retail, our brand ambassador programs, really getting people in the aisle and being able to answer questions about our food or talk to why it's better than something else. It's really been a business built on that one-to-one. And so as we think about the rest of the year and 2021, I think you're going to see a big shift, not only obviously our plans, but a lot of folks that are kind of base reliant on that sort of in-store appeal, even from a merchandising perspective, a display, like everything in store, people are now going to kind of go in and be like, I want to spend more time than I have to in store. I think they're still going to go to stores, but I think they're going to spend a lot less time. And so for us, it makes things like continuing to invest in ratings and reviews. I think a lot of that kind of lower funnel advertising where you're really kind of making sure people understand the benefits. I think we'll do a lot more need-based things like, oh, I hear you have a problem. Here's how I can solve your problem versus higher level awareness. I think, we have small influencer programs. A lot of our influencers have been more in store. I think online influencers have kind of had an up and down path as just marketing has shifted, but I think there's going to be a lot of shift back to those folks so they can try our food, use it. And again, just like baby food and other things, people really rely on what other people tell them. And so now it's going to be like, how do we continue to find resources to do that for us versus in store?
Do you think, and again, this is not exactly my specialty, but do you think that, Chewie.com, Petsmart.com, Amazon.com, the .com players will build more holistic brand experiences on their digital platform so that brands can educate digitally at the point of purchase in a digital sense? Or is that already there? Like, is that something that you would push for?
I think it varies across our partners. So I think Amazon is a great example of this little startup that is really figuring out how to create these incredible brand experiences. So we just launched a brand store on Amazon. So people can get a much more robust Merrick experience that up until just a few days ago, they could only get on our website or in store. So I do think we're going to start seeing Petco, PetSmart look a lot more into that enhanced content model that has made Amazon what it is today, because people are going to be spending, we already know they're spending a lot of time online doing their research, looking at things, but I think it's going to be a little more now because I think they're going to really want to go in store being pretty set on what they buy. Or if, and that's assuming they go in store, everyone else is just going to make those decisions online. And so they're going to need to have that information there to convert, or they're going to lose them to someone else who answers their questions. So I think also things like chat, text, all those customer service tools. I mean, I am, a fairly sophisticated online shopper, and I almost get disappointed now when there's not an online chat because I don't want to go in store. I don't want to call someone, but I've got a question. And so being able to provide those levels of service are going to be really important as well.
And pet food is, I don't know if it's like a deeply thoughtful decision that people make, right? Like they're not just like winging it and being like, your packaging is nice and pretty. like it is a decision that people take very seriously. They want to know what's in there. They want to know what's going on, and that it's good for their animal. And so they're going to have deeper questions than, buying a white t-shirt.
Yeah, I thought you said wet t-shirt. And I was like, okay, different call. No, exactly. And I think, again, especially our pet parents who are buying a $40, $50, $60 bag of pet food are way more invested in that decision. I mean, there certainly are people who are like, it's a price driven and they're going, to do that. But within the natural category and within pet specialty, I mean, we just did some consumer work. I mean, people will literally go into the store for an hour and read the ingredients just like they do on their own food and look at that label and go from pack to pack to pack. And so being able to do that online efficiently is going to be really important.
Yep. It's a changing world. Let's talk about a couple really cool things that you guys have done lately. Barbecue. So your big thing for this year was a new barbecue line, and it was going to be awesome. And then, I mean, it happened, but the plans like turned upside down. So can you talk to us a little bit about that launch, what it's supposed to look like and what it is now?
Yeah, quick 15-second ad for all of you pet owners out there. Our new line of Merrick barbecue comes in 4 regionally inspired flavors, is incredible. Your dogs will like, I mean, you're going to open it up. It looks and smells like barbecue. So we won't even go into the health benefits, just check it out. But so barbecue was our big innovation this year. And we were super excited. We were going to go to Memphis in May. We were going to be the first dog food to launch. It was going to be very experiential, kind of food truck sorts of things. And then Corona hit. And so we said, okay, well, that's not gonna happen. And so we kind of took a step back and looked at the landscape of the world, and we kind of saw 2 problems that we could uniquely help solve. The first was local restaurants were suffering. People weren't going to restaurants at all, and there's a lot of incredible barbecue restaurants out there. And then at the same time, I think everybody's heard so much about all the dogs that have been adopted and fostered, which is great. The shelters are empty, but at the same time, no one's donating to shelters. Like people are just, dollars are being spent differently. There's a lot of concern. So a lot of our shelter partners are down in donations. And so we created this program called Barbecue for Good. And we partnered with DoorDash. And what we did is for a week, people were able to go online, order DoorDash, use the hashtag Barbecue for Good, and we would donate $1 to a national animal shelter. So great way to get people kind of excited about barbecue, but also give back, which is something that's just critical to our DNA and who we are. So that was just really fun to see. We had some local programs where you could also get the barbecue food delivered and things like that. So my boss is like, you only need 5 days to plan a program from now on. And I'm like, no, but we did it. We had great partners and the response was fantastic. So we were really excited.
So can we expect to see you at Memphis next May?
I hope so. We thought they were going to move it to Memphis in September, and then that got canceled too. So I've never been. So I would love to get down there, one personally, but I think it's a great opportunity to get in front of, a lot of pet owners who love barbecue with our product and what we have to offer.
I think that's so cool. I mean, it is interesting in these days how, like, what does, Merrick have to do with DoorDash have to do with, anything else, right? In a sort of a normal world, you wouldn't ever think, but it's happened a lot. Like a lot of these brands who come from dramatically different industries and categories have found ways to work together, not only for their own good, but for the good of likely a third party, a charity, whatever it is. So I think that's a really interesting sort of byproduct or side effect of the situation we're in, is folks are looking outside of their sort of front, standard tunnel vision for partnerships.
I do. I think as crazy as the world is right now, there has been such a growth and an outpouring of just overall humanity for the most part that it's really nice to see.
Awesome. And then perfect segue. This is just a week old or a few days old. Canine for Warriors, did I get that right? Is a partner of yours, and you guys just did a really cool study on service dogs and their positive impact on veterans.
So Canines for Warriors has been a partner of ours for a while now, and Merrick provides all of the food to their shelters. What's really interesting about their program is that they are all shelter dogs. So they find and kind of rescue these dogs, and they kind of rehabilitate them. So that's where the nutrition comes in. They really see how it changes those dogs' lives. They're then paired with a veteran who has most likely been suffering from PTSD. And what we've done, in addition to just providing food, and I think this is what you're referring to, is we funded $500,000 in research for Purdue University. It's a multi-year study, and they've just started to release some of the results, and the early findings are incredible. Right now, for veterans, the only medicine or the only kind of thing insurance coverages in terms of helping them is drugs. And what we're trying to show is that a service dog is just as effective, if not more so, that the cost of that should be covered by insurance, but also to encourage increased investments in that area. And so the research team at Purdue is amazing, and they found ways to measure serotonin levels throughout the day, whereas I hope there's no one in science and research out there that's going to totally hold me to this. So let's just take it at its highest level. But most of us wake up, our levels increase, and then they kind of go down through the day. Whereas folks who suffered, and again, please, like big asterisk, I'm not a scientist, who suffer from PTSD, they kind of never hit any of those spikes. And what they've seen is with the dog's ability to understand and calm the owner, is they're actually seeing that increase. And it's that research that will allow it to be proven as a cure isn't the right word, but as help. And it's incredible. I've been down to their facility in Florida, and what it's done for some of these veterans who it's changed their relationships with their family. It's changed their ability to go to the mall, to a movie, to a store, to a restaurant. It's given them their life back. And it's just been incredible for Merrick to be part of.
So that's something that you guys have been involved with for, you said years, a while now, right? Mm-hmm. The DoorDash sort of was I don't even want to say opportunistic, but a necessary pivot, but that had a charitable element to it. As you go forward, like a brand, you've always been rooted in quality and taking care of your customers with premium dog food. You've had charitable elements to your marketing mix in the past. Is that something that you think that the world, not making a philosophical statement, that's something you see doing more of because you think there's benefit there for the business, for the community?
I don't, like, we are certainly not jumping on the purpose-driven bandwagon because of Corona. You know, on our package, one of our 5 stars is Merrick Gives Back. So I think for us, that's always been who we are. I think we will continue to leverage it. I think there's plenty of other studies out there that talk about the importance of purpose-driven brands to consumers, especially to millennials and kind of some of these younger groups. And I think in the world we live in, just changed forever. I mean, it'll go back to something, but like we are living in a very different time. I do think brands that can show the empathy and can find ways to give back to the people who are buying their products and to stand for something will continue to thrive. And again, I know there's studies out there that talk about the bottom line and the market cap of companies that behave in that sort of way. And I do think you're going to see a lot more of it. And the challenge is going to be for people who are turning it on to make sure that they do it in a truly authentic way, because consumers are really smart and they will call you out immediately. And so that's something that we take very, very seriously, is how do we make sure we're doing this in an authentic way? It's not ever about us as the brand. It's about who we're helping. And how do you walk that fine line? I mean, at the end of the day, we're a business. We need to hit our numbers, but we can't be in it for the wrong reasons.
Well, the important word is walk. You walk the walk, not just talk the talk. All right, we have a question here from Phyllis. That's all I've got for you. I have no other. You're off my hot seat. But Phyllis Joseph asks, do you have an existing direct response or email program? And how do you anticipate leveraging that moving forward in the spirit of affecting decision-making on purchases in advance of being in store?
No, that's a great question. And I think for everybody, kind of your own database and email marketing is going to become more critical. So we do have an email marketing program. I feel we're still in our infancies of sophistication. Luckily, last year we started to put some improvements in place. So further segmentation, different content for dog and cat owners. I mean, some very basic things, but we know are critical. And so we will try to grow that database. We will continue to leverage it to drive awareness of new products for trial. So again, as we learn more about our pet parents and we know that they're buying our treats but not our food, how do we consistently tell those stories? So I'd love to see us kind of on a 1 to 3 year plan really get to a best in class from a CRM perspective. I think that's going to be really important.
And then one last question is, we talked about this a little bit earlier. So what are your brands like in store is dramatically scaled back? Do you think that's a part of your business that will sort of recapture its importance down the road, or do you think that the shift is a little bit more permanent?
I think we're a very big country, and we see kind of two parts on the news, like the people who are packing places, and then the people who are like, heck no, we won't go. People are going to go back to retail. I mean, the day the Gap opened, like I was in, like it smelled so good. I was like, I'm ready, I'm back. So people are going to go back to retail. I just think how they do it is going to be different. And so again, fighting just as much as we did, but even more so for display. So like display has always been important to retail, but now it's even more so because I kind of want to be at the front of the store, because when someone comes in, that's probably what they're going to grab and go. So I think it's going to be a lot of the same, but heightened. And that's where just the relationships with your retail partners are going to come into play. I think the kind of point of sale you use. So do you get more eye-catching video displays? We were trying some, video units in some of our pet stores. Again, I know I just said they're not going to spend as much time in store, but if I give them something more engaging, I have a better chance at least keeping them and maybe converting them. So there's certainly going to be a shift in the mix, 100%, but retail's not going to go away. In our category, it's not going to go away. It might change, but people will still have questions about their pets. They're still going to want to bring their pets into the store. They're still going to go get groomed. All those things are still going to happen. So there's an opportunity to capture them.
Love it. Awesome. Well, Lauren, I see you have popped back in. There you are.
Hi.
Yeah, that's sort of all it is, but I don't know if Lauren, if you have any questions, or if there's any other questions to discuss, or if we're all cooked.
I liked your phrase, off the hook. You're off the hook, guys. I was listening to you guys during, and I was thinking these two should start a podcast or something.
We had so much fun yesterday. We didn't get to our Marvel movies was going to be our next topic of conversation if we ran out of things to talk about. So
yeah, like Thor's the worst, but Captain America, 2 thumbs up.
Oh man, we're gonna start getting hate mail, you guys.
I know. See,
yeah.
Give us 30 minutes on the next live cast.
Yeah. Okay. Please come back. I think that's we'll just do a whole day on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Netflix. You can talk about Netflix or all my other binge watching all day too. So.
Oh man, Barbie, you should join one of our happy hours Zach hosts sometimes. All we do is talk about not work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Zach gave me a couple things to watch, so I'll add them to my list and then.
But don't join the happy hour until you've watched them. I'm not inviting noobs to the happy hour who can't talk about the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see the bar has been set. Is that what you say? Yeah.
Very high. Very high.
Okay.
Very high.
Got it.
It's very high, guys. Thank you so much. I know you guys have busy schedules like all of our speakers, and we really appreciate you being a part of the community.
Thanks.
No, it's my pleasure. This was fun.
Awesome. All righty.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and thanks to our audience for tuning in today. We have a full slate of programming starting next Tuesday through Thursday, so feel free to check it out on our site and register there, and we'll see you again soon. Have a great day.